Even gods can fall out of balance. And when they do, the storms they bring don't just shake the skies, they ripple through realms, testing strength, humility, and wisdom. Stay with us to the end and find out how Thor's thunderous journey reveals the life-changing power of true inner balance. Welcome back to Myth Motivation. The god of thunder, the hammer-wielding warrior of Asgard. Thor is one of the most iconic figures in all mythology. Loud, brash, brave, and immensely strong. But beneath the lightning and heroic feats lies a deeper struggle, one that every human being can relate to. Because Thor, for all his power, constantly wrestled with extremes of pride, of rage, of strength used without thought. And it was only when he began to find equilibrium between those forces that he truly grew, not just as a god, but as a being worthy of wisdom, leadership, and even vulnerability. In Norse mythology, Thor isn't a perfect hero. He's deeply flawed. He acts without thinking, often ruled by emotion. And yet, time and again he's called upon to defend the 9 realms, to face monsters, giants, and chaos itself. Why? Because the gods know that sometimes the storm is what saves the world, but only when it's in balance. This is not a story of perfection. It's a story of struggle, of learning to carry the hammer without becoming crushed by its weight, of embracing both strength and restraint, might and mercy. Let's return to the mythic sagas, to the frost-covered landscapes of the Norse cosmos, and walk alongside Thor as he battles not only enemies, but his own imbalance. Through this journey, we'll uncover what it truly means to live in harmony with our power. The icy wind howled across the plains of Jotunheim. The land of the giants was no place for rest, only for war. And that's exactly what Thor wanted. Armed with his legendary hammer, Mjolnir, and wearing his iron gloves, Thor thundered through the realm, his presence shaking mountains. By his side was Loki, the trickster, half-brother, and eternal instigator. They had come in search of glory. A rumor had reached Asgard that the giants were scheming again, plotting the downfall of the gods. Thor, with his fierce sense of duty and hunger for action, insisted they investigate. But as they reached the fortress of Utgarda-Loki, a giant unlike any Thor had faced before awaited them, not with brute force, but with cunning. Inside the Great Hall, Utgarda-Loki challenged Thor and his companions to a series of tests. Thor, proud and unshaken, agreed. After all, he was the strongest of the gods. What could possibly go wrong? The first challenge, a drinking horn. Thor was told to drain it in one gulp. Child's play, he thought, but no matter how much he drank, the level barely changed. Next, he was asked to lift a cat. Easy, he smirked. But when he reached down, the cat refused to budge. Thor strained, sweat beading down his brow, and managed to lift just one paw off the ground. Finally, he faced an old woman in a wrestling match. Again, he was confident. But the moment they grappled, he began to falter. The harder he fought, the weaker he became, until he fell to one knee. Humiliated, Thor bristled with rage. What trickery was this? And then came the truth. The horn he drank from. It was connected to the ocean. Each gulp had lowered the sea levels. The cat? It was the Midgard serpent, Jörmungandr, who encircled the entire world. And the old woman. She was old age itself. No one, not even gods, could defeat her. Thor had not failed. In fact, he had done the impossible. But because he was blinded by pride, by the need to dominate every challenge, he couldn't see his own strength for what it truly was. Utgarda-Loki laughed not out of mockery, but respect and fear. He had seen the raw force Thor could muster, and he knew that if Thor ever learned to temper that power with wisdom, nothing would stop him. The lesson should have ended there. But balance is not something you learn once. It's a daily battle. And for Thor, that battle continued. Another time, another realm. Thor traveled again with Loki, this time to retrieve his stolen hammer. Without Mjolnir, Asgard was vulnerable. Thunder was silenced. they discovered that Thrym, a brutish frost giant, had taken it and demanded the goddess Freya in exchange. Thor's first instinct: violence. He would storm Jotunheim and retrieve the hammer by force, but without his weapon, even he knew that would be suicide. Then Loki, always scheming, proposed something absurd: a disguise. Thor would dress as Freya, veil and all, and enter Thrym's hall pretending to be the bride. Thor, ever proud, resisted. A god in a dress? He roared with laughter, then growled with anger, but in the end he agreed, because the mission mattered more than his ego. And so the god of thunder wore a bridal gown. As he sat silently beside Thrym, the giant noticed strange things. The bride devoured entire oxen, downed barrels of mead. She must be hungry, Loki lied. When the hammer was finally brought out to bless the marriage, placed in Thor's lap, he erupted. Dropping all pretenses, Thor ripped off his veil, seized Mjolnir, and unleashed destruction upon the giants. Thrym and his kin fell like trees in a storm. But this time, it wasn't just brute strength that saved the day. It was restraint, patience, strategy. For once, Thor had played a role, waited, listened, endured humiliation, all for the greater goal. Balance was growing in him, slowly, painfully, but unmistakably. Yet no lesson in balance is complete without tragedy. In the twilight days of the gods, Thor would face his ultimate foe, Jörmungandr, the world serpent. Prophecy had long foretold it. During Ragnarok, Thor would slay the serpent, but take 9 steps before falling dead from its venom. He knew the cost, and still, he charged. The battle was apocalyptic. Lightning split the skies. The serpent thrashed through oceans. Thunder boomed like drums of war. Mjolnir cracked against Jörmungandr's skull. Venom sprayed across the field. Thor howled, not in fear but in fury. With one final blow, he shattered the beast's head. And then, silence. Thor stood, victorious. But the poison had already begun its work. 9 steps. That's all he had left. And with each step, the myth of perfect power fell away. Strength alone could not save the gods. Even Thor, mightiest among them, was mortal in the end. His fall was not failure, it was fulfillment. He had done what only he could do and paid the price willingly. That too is balance. Knowing when to fight and when to fall, when to wield power and when to surrender to fate. Thor's journey is not about being invincible, it's about becoming whole. In our world, we often chase extremes: constant hustle, relentless ambition, unwavering confidence. But like Thor, we risk losing sight of the power in pause, in patience, in letting go. Balance isn't about being neutral or passive. It's about knowing when to strike and when to listen, when to speak and when to be silent, when to stand firm and when to bend like the branches of Yggdrasil in the wind. Thor teaches us that real strength includes restraint, that courage sometimes means wearing the veil, not the armor, that growth means looking foolish, enduring loss, and walking those 9 final steps with purpose. And this is the truth we often forget. If you're only strong, you're brittle. If you're only wise, you're hesitant. But when you blend the storm and the stillness, you become unstoppable. Balance is the path not just to victory, but to legacy. So, where do you stand in your own journey? Are you always swinging the hammer, pushing, grinding, proving? Or have you forgotten the value of stillness, strategy, and surrender? Today, take a step back. Ask yourself, what would Thor do? Not the comic book hero, but the mythic one. Would he rush in or wait? Would he boast or observe? You are your own thunder god, but even thunder needs silence to echo. Wield your power, but with wisdom. Let your storms be followed by calm. That is the lesson of Thor. That is the key to true strength. If this story moved you, subscribe for more mythic insight and motivation. Myth Motivation, ancient wisdom for modern times.